Tony D and Little Joan with a screenwriter's rant on Fallout, Season 1, Episode 2. This is a screenwriter's take. I'm going to do a review of Episode 2. I don't know how long I'm going to do this because, quite frankly, the second episode's not much better than the first. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books, the links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 14, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. Look, this show needed to hit the ground running, and this episode has some cool characters. Again, they nailed the look, I think, pretty well. And it's slightly better from episode 1, but it's not great. It's just not great. It kind of luxuriates in scenes that aren't particularly important to the story. This is only a clip. This is like a sneak peek. That's a funny stuff. All right, so I'll do a non-spoiler review, but it'll be very short. Basically, it's slightly better than the first one. I think Maximus has the best scene in this because he gets sort of an upgrade. Walton Goggins, I always say his name wrong. I always want to call him Walter. He's in it in the last scene. Most of his scene is pretty good, except for some of it, which I'll get into. Lucy kind of wanders around the waste, and quite frankly, they waste a lot of time. I would say the show, this episode was too slow moving. Wasted a bunch of time on scenes like that could have been in the video game, but they would have been like side characters that kind of are unimportant. And then there are too many coincidences. Too many coincidences and characters not playing at the height of their intelligence. There's no excuse for that. They're spending millions of dollars on this thing. Your Amazon Studios, you spend millions of dollars and you can't get the best writers. Here's what I would do. If I was making this show, the first people I would have hired would be the guys who wrote the game. I would go through all the writers who wrote the game, and I would say, you guys are going to be my top hirees, right? The guy who wrote the Nick Valentine storyline in Fallout, and the guy who wrote the one where, the guy gets frozen and he fights his own dad who runs the scientist community, that guy, like, those are the guys I would put in my top category of hiring writers for this show. And then, maybe a couple of guys who have written episodic television who are actual more TV writers to put it in the proper format and to hit the right notes. The show's just moving too damn slow for me on the one hand. It's wasting a lot of time. On the other hand, it's okay, but it's not great. It's not great. They're spending all the money in the wrong places. They're wasting. There are long scenes that are a waste of time, and then there are short scenes that are pretty good, which could have been longer. Okay, so let's get into the spoiler review. So that's my non-spoiler review. Here's the spoiler reviews. So spoilers ahoy. Go watch the episode if you want, but let me see if I can remember the order now. It's kind of a forgettable episode on top of everything else. But it starts out with the scientist character. I forget his name. I don't know. He's a scientist. Now the question for me is, what time period is he in the opening scenes? Is he in the time before the missiles dropped, before the apocalypse, or is he in the present day of the show? I don't know. It could be either one. Because on the one hand, he's walking around, there are guys in uniform that look like they are pre-war guys. On the other hand, hasn't aged. They don't show him being frozen or anything. I don't know what his deal is. And they don't really explain it. So we have this long sequence of the scientist raising the puppy that becomes his companion in the waste. That's a nice scene, but here's the thing, guys who wrote the episode, and I'm jumping ahead, the scientist dies in this episode. So what's the point of showing what a great guy he is to his dog? I think you could have done that pretty easily. I think you could add one line in the episode like, "Oh, Frank, you raised that thing from a pup." "I sure did." Boom. All that information has been encapsulated. There's a scene in which another scientist accosts the scientist, and the dog kills him, and that's why he escapes the facility? Or is it because the missiles are launching and that's why he escapes the facility? I think it's the former. So, but again, I don't know what their deal is. Was he part of the Enclave? Is that what he's doing? I guess. You haven't explained the Enclave yet. Anyhow, he escapes the scientific facility, and he's so smart, he gets confronted by one of those machine gun robot turrets and has to run away from it rather than turn it off. Which makes zero sense. He's running along with the dog and the bullets are just landing around them. That doesn't make any sense, guys. Sorry. You took me right out of the show. I was like, come on. Come on. Like, at least give him a little gadget. He goes, and the robot can't like focus on him. Then maybe you could have gotten away with that scene. Anyhow, cuts to Lucy walking around in the waste. She's standing near a ship. Next thing you know, she's standing near houses. She walks through a house. She sees a family of skeletons from pre-war. They're sitting around a table. You often find this in the game. And then you find a bottle of poison. They drank poison and killed themselves before the bombs hit. But their bodies are still there. This is something you find in the game. Is this particularly relevant in the show? No. Look, this is the first regular episode. I mean, the previous episode was all about introducing the characters. It's nice atmosphere, I guess, but you don't have the time to waste in this show. We need to know more about Lucy. We need to know more about that scientist, because you did this whole sequence with the scientist, and I still don't know who he is. All I know is, he injected himself with a glowing thing in his neck. So, Lucy keeps walking. She runs into one of the characters you'll find in the wastelands. Some crazy guy trying to make water. She gives him some water. He has virtually no information, and he's just crazy, dying in the wasteland, and she's off to a town called Philly with an F. What is that short for? I don't know. Maybe there's somewhere near Los Angeles that starts with an F. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but she gets to Philly, and it's this ramshackle town made up of plane parts and junk, and it's like something out of the video game. Again, the look nailed it. At the same time, Maximus, they show him on his mission, with his lord, his knight, right? So they're off in the helicopter, and the lord knight is just treating him terribly, makes him clean his codpiece for no reason, just because everybody picks on Maximus. And then suddenly he says, I'm bored. Let's land this thing. I want to shoot something. So for no reason, the knight and Maximus go down into the waste. Okay? So they're in the waste, walking around, and he's got to catch up with his bag, because he's a squire. He's carrying a bag. Meanwhile, the scientist apparently is also walking around in the waste, just walking around with the dog. He's there, okay. Stops to eat a thing of cram, but the thing is, he sits down on a barrel clearly marked with radioactive waste. Now, he's a scientist. He would know what that symbol means. He wouldn't sit on it. I imagine the radiation would damage him or hurt him. He would know that. Unless the thing he injected in his neck makes him immune somehow. I don't think he'd stop there for lunch. It seems like a stupid thing to do. But he does. The dog discovers there's some lair nearby in the cave, and they leave. He leaves behind his lab jacket and the cram. Then Maximus and the Knight show up. Maximus immediately sees the cram, and the lab jacket says, hey, he was here, or someone was here. A little too coincidental. This should not have happened. You didn't need the scientist even in this scene at all. There's another scene with the scientist at night. I think this happens before. So Lucy is camped out at a random wasteland. She doesn't camp out inside. She camps outside, starts a campfire, and then is nearly attacked by a rad roach, one of the giant roaches, but the scientist's dog kills it for her, and then the scientist is suddenly sitting next to Lucy, says some cryptic things, and then walks away in the darkness with the dog. So at first I thought, oh, he's going to be one of those characters. He just keeps showing up mysteriously, saying cryptic things. No, he just did it that one time for no reason. Doesn't tell Lucy who he is. He tells her to go home, but he doesn't explain who he is, why he's doing what he's doing. I don't know why he's there. I don't know where he's staying. He's warning her not to start a fire outside. Where the hell is he staying? He's just walking along in the darkness. I would advise you not to walk along in the darkness in the wastelands of Fallout. But okay. Lucy, I don't know. Does she smarten up and go into a house? We don't see that. But anyhow, back where Maximus and the Knight is. Maximus and the Knight are at a cave. They go inside. It's the lair of something. The Knight has a big gun and armor, but he doesn't like Maximus, so he sends him deeper into the cave, even though he has no power armor, which Maximus tells him. He says, oh, my lord, I have no power armor. Basically, the Knight threatens him, so Maximus reluctantly goes with his sidearm, walks in there, finds a bunch more radioactive canisters. Now, those two guys may not know what that means, but the guy in the power armor would be getting, Geiger counter readings saying that it was full of radiation. So, not a good thing to do, but whatever. So, there's nothing in the cave, and fortunately for Maximus, his light doesn't work. So, when he goes in there, fortunately for him, the bear isn't there. He's already outside the cave. He gets up behind the Knight. So, he starts attacking the Knight. Destroys his weapon. Maximus has at least, I would say, 2 or 3 clear shots at the bear. He doesn't take the shot. The bear continues to smash up the Knight until finally the Knight starts screaming, shoot him, shoot him. So Maximus finally takes the shot, puts a bullet right in the bear's head. Now, I've fought bears in the game of Fallout. Let me tell you something. I only wish you could put one bullet in the brain of a bear, radioactive bear, that they would go down that quickly, especially with the little sidearm he was using. Totally not the game, but you can forgive it for the show if maybe we established what a great shot Maximus is, or maybe the Knight would have the reaction, oh my god, nice shot, kid, something like that. Or maybe Maximus unloads the clip into the bear and it's just staggering around, and finally on the 5th shot it goes down. Something like that. Just seemed a little too easy for him to kill it. But he says, here, take off my helmet, takes it off, and lo and behold, it's Michael Rapaport as the Knight, which is kind of fitting because Michael Rapaport is kind of an a-hole, and he's good at playing a-holes. So he's still berating Maximus relentlessly. Now, there's nothing in the show really to establish why they keep picking on Maximus. Nothing I saw in the show shows me why they continually pick on Maximus. I don't know why. I guess Michael Rapaport is just an a-hole in the show. But he starts screaming for him to get him a stim pack, and that's the thing in the game that heals you, right? It brings you back from the brink. For some reason, the guy in the power armor doesn't have his own stim packs, even though when I played the game, it's easy to give you stuff. Oh, you need a stim pack? Boom, stim pack. But setting aside the game, as the squire, he's supposed to get him the stim pack. So he's fumbling around getting the stim pack. As he's doing that, Michael Rappaport is berating him, but not only berating him, telling him that he's going to be hung, that it's his fault this happened, and he's mad at him. And when we get back, we're going to hang you, and we're going to leave your body hanging in the breeze. And Maximus, not being an idiot, just sits down with the stim pack and lets Michael Rappaport die. Now, I don't have a problem with what Maximus does, really. I have a problem that Michael Rappaport is so stupid that he keeps berating the kid and then realizes, oh, now he's going to let me die. Doesn't make any sense. I would have liked to have seen Maximus take out his gun and shoot Michael Rappaport. Quite frankly, he was being so ridiculously berating, and they were in the middle of the waste and no one was there. Another thing that it could have happened is Michael Rappaport could have been a lot more subtle. Like the language could have been a lot more subtle. Like, he doesn't outright say that it was his fault. Not initially, but he implies that it's his fault. And he implies, and then maybe instead of Michael Rappaport saying that squires, you know what we do to squires, we hang them. Like, Maximus turns around and he says, sir, squires that fail their knight are hung. And you're sounding like you think I failed you. And then Michael Rappaport could say, no, I don't think I failed. You didn't fail me. No, you clearly said that, Lord. And then, you realize, he's going to let him die. Again, lazy writing. But, so Michael Rappaport dies and he gets the armor. He tries it out, throws some bricks. He doesn't have a gun, although he has a sidearm still, but I don't know. He pulls that out later in the episode. He eventually has it. It's hard to carry all this stuff in the Fallout, in the actual Fallout world, than it is in the game. I had so much stuff when I had a power suit armor. God, I must have been carrying 19 million things. So eventually we cut back to Philly. Lucy is trying to find her dad. One of the food guys just ignores her, shows her the picture. But when she gets inside to the pawn shop lady and she doesn't show her dad's picture, she mentions the Raider's name. I forget her name. And then she goes kind of pale, and after laughing at her as a vault dweller, a naive vault dweller, at that point when she mentions the Raider's specific name, she tells her to get the hell out of her shop. Finally, Lucy does. Now, the problem I have with the scene, first off, it goes on way too long. We already know she's a naive vault dweller. We've greatly established, we're just wasting so much time with this show. We've already established she's a naive vault dweller. Just stop giving us, member berries for the show, as Jeremy at the quartering says. Just get on with the plot. The plot should be about this scientist. Well, lo and behold, as she's walking out of the pawn shop, there's the scientist and the dog. What a coinky-dink. So he meets her in the middle of nowhere. Then he meets her in Philly. And he nearly ran into Maximus near the bear cave. That's just lazy. There's no reason for the scientist to meet him there. We could have had a scene explaining possibly the Enclave a little bit, or at least to explain where he escaped from, right? Where that was in relation to Philly. Maybe you could have him argue with the other scientist, and during the course of the experiment or the argument, he could say something like, well, where are you going to go? Well, I'll go to Philly. Oh, that dump. At least you could kind of establish where and when these people are. You kind of have to do that in a show like this. If people have too nice of clothes, and the scientist clearly did, and he was surrounded by soldiers that had nice uniforms, they could be from the pre-war days. I don't know. I mean, the buildings did look worn, though, so maybe not. Anyhow, so now Lucy runs into the scientist, and the pawn shop lady's urging him to come in because, of course, she's the one who's supposed to smuggle him away. And then why was the scientist out in the waste running into Lucy? It doesn't make any sense. The scientist doesn't make much sense. He's supposed to be the smartest guy in the show, and he's just wandering around the waste for no reason. And then he gets to Philly, and he should immediately walk into the pawn shop. Like, you are being hunted, right? So imagine you're being hunted, and you walk into Bartertown, or whatever Philly is. What's the first thing you do? Well, get out of sight. You should be maybe wearing like a hood or whatever, something to cover yourself up so you're not seen immediately. Maybe. And then if you're not going to do that, well, at least walk inside as quickly as you get there. No, there's this scene where they're talking, and then suddenly Walton Goggins is there. He's been waiting all this time. And the first thing the pawn shop lady says is, "Your kind aren't welcome here." Well, again, that may be true. One, why didn't anybody stop him if ghouls aren't welcomed in the town? And two, if he snuck in some sort of disguise, why isn't he wearing one? Not really explained. So now Walton Goggins is like, "Give me the scientist." She says, "No, I'm going to smuggle him." And Walton Goggins shoots off the scientist's foot. It was just brutal. I'm not exactly sure why he does that. Like, why not just shoot the pawn shop lady? And then starts a crazy scene in which Walton Goggins kills half the town, which did feel like the video game because it was something I would do in the game all the time. But also felt kind of unnecessary because, first off, the town was kind of afraid of Walton Goggins. Number one. Number two, if everybody's kind of out for themselves, as they often are in Fallout, why would they even care? So Walton Goggins wants to take this guy. Now, the old lady who runs the pawn shop yells, "I'll give 1,000 caps to anybody who kills this effer." So that's one reason they could start shooting at him, and I guess that's why they do. But the way it's shot, what it should have done was it should have shown the people like, I don't care what's going on. And they go back to business. And then she screams, "I'll give 1,000 caps to anybody who shoots this effer." Then they should cut to them going, "Ooh, 1,000 caps. Oh, that's a lot of money." And then they start pulling out their guns and taking cover. But they don't do that. So Walton Goggins gets into a big gunfight just so Walton Goggins can shoot a bunch of dudes. And it's a pretty cool fight. They're doing slow motion bullets that go through two people at once. And big cartoony explosions, very bloody. That part I liked. I liked that fight. Then Lucy confronts him in the dumbest way possible, basically saying, "Well, sir, you're obviously the aggressor here." I mean, but she kind of questions it, but like he's killed like, I don't know, a dozen people. Like, why doesn't she just shoot him? And she has a dart gun. She doesn't have like a gun that shoots bullets. So it should have just been like Walton Goggins is like, "Okay, give me the scientist before I thunk." And then Walton Goggins pulls the dart out and turns around and flicks it away because it doesn't affect ghouls apparently. I think that was from the game. And then Lucy is standing there like with the gun, like, uh-oh. Like, why would she give him a big wind-up? Doesn't make any sense, even though Lucy is naive. But is she stupid? No. She's not stupid. He's obviously the aggressor. He just killed a dozen people. Boom. Anyhow, I guess it's just an excuse to let the actress drone on. Again, wasted time. So then Maximus shows up to save the day, right? So he confronts the ghoul and he saves Lucy from being shot. he tells Lucy, get the scientist. He's very important. So Maximus knows who he is. It was the guy they were looking for. They got a paper in the first episode. He's very important, so hold on to him. Get him inside and help him, and I'll take care of the ghoul. So again, Maximus, pretty good so far in this episode. Up until that point, I was like, oh, look at Maximus. So then he fights Walter Goggins, and it's a big, ridiculous fight that ends with suddenly Walter Goggins pulling out a knife and slicing a hose, which screws up everything on his power armor, which seemed a little much. Yeah, that seemed to be a little too quick. Like earlier, he had shot up the armor and nothing happened. I think it would have been better for Walter Goggins to just start shooting again and this time finally get a hit. But instead, he pulls out the knife and slices him just in the right spot, as if he knows how to defeat power armor. In which case, why didn't he do that when he first shot at him? See, again, it doesn't make sense. Either Walter Goggins can disarm power armor or disable power armor with a knife, which means he could do it with a gun even quicker because he's a pretty good shot in the show, or he can't. In which case, you should have made it like he finally scores a hit on the damn thing. Now, it would make sense that he would know some of the weaknesses of power armor since he's 219 years old at least. And, he's been wandering around in the waste. But so then the armor starts to malfunction. Maximus ends up flying away. It's kind of a goofy scene for no reason. Yeah, I wasn't down with that goofy scene. The power armor guy goes flying away, and that's basically the end of him for this show. He goes after the scientist. The dog goes after Walter Goggins. Walter Goggins stabs the dog. They don't show it. Did you hear it go? Oh, sad. I was like, oh, that's brutal. They killed the dog at first. Then during the fight, they take the scientist and they give him something that's very funny, and it is, I don't know if it was from the game, but it's very much the game. Something called Jim's limbs, so they give him a fake prosthetic foot to replace the foot that got blown apart, and he's able to walk again. So him and Lucy escape out the back door while the fight's going on. After the fight is over, Lucy and the scientist have escaped, and in order to find the scientist, Walter Goggins goes back to the dog, who's still alive, takes him inside, and gives him a stim pack, and brings him back to life, brings him back from the brink. Now the dog's okay, and I'm like, hooray, because I was worried about the dog. Even though it's a fake dog, I still worried. So then it gets even dumber. So Lucy and the scientist are walking across the waste, and are walking, and then they end up at a satellite that says CCP on it. So it's some sort of communist satellite that crashed on the beach. And basically the scientist says, here's a good spot. And they stop. And, Lucy gives him a speech like, oh, you're going to make it. He goes, no, I'm not. I already took the cyanide. So now the guy's decided to kill himself. Why? Doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know why they don't just give him a stim pack. Like, why wouldn't you give him a stim pack? It wouldn't completely heal you, but it might stop you from bleeding, and he might actually make it. Lucy has some of those stim packs. She has to have a stim pack. At least one. At least one. And there was definitely one in the store, and they should have given him one then. Anyhow, he's taking cyanide, and he tells Lucy, well, you're going to make it to the next town over so you can save your dad. And she goes, how am I going to carry your body all the way into town? And he goes, oh, you don't have to carry my body. Just cut off my head. And he hands her like a little miniature chainsaw so she can cut off his head after he's dead. Then he uses her name, making her realize that he knew who she was. and then he dies. He also dies without telling her, like, oh, I injected this thing into my neck, so make sure you cut below that, so you take that with you, because that's what obviously they really want, is the thing in his neck. So, I mean, and, you know, Walter Goggins is chasing them. Maximus has to fix his armor. Like, you wasted a lot of time in this show, is what pisses me off about it. So, first episode, you're introducing the three characters, and you didn't have enough time to introduce everyone. Okay? And really, again, some of the wind-up was unnecessary. I didn't really need a big wind-up how Maximus gets to be a squire. I really didn't need that. Like, why do this whole thing where he sabotages his friend, or maybe somebody else sabotages his friend, and then he gets to be a squire? Why not just make him a squire? Why not just say he qualifies? Wouldn't that be easier? Why not just say he qualifies, but we're going to put you with the worst knight, Michael Rappaport, who's going to treat you like crap, and nobody wants to work with him. Or maybe they even say to him, listen, the only knight we have left is Michael Rappaport, and he's a jerk. We'll let you wait if you want, but... And he goes, no, I'll be a squire. Like, problem solved. And then you could do other things. Like the scenes with Lucy interacting with the guy, again, that's a fun scene in the video game when you interact with crazy characters. It's not really moving the story forward, though. It's delaying it. Where's her dad? Where are the bandits? We're not even there yet. And if you're not going to explain her dad and the bandits, which is the key thing for Lucy to do in the story, well, why not explain the world more? Like, why not have her find, like, I don't know, one of the tape recorders that you used to find in the game that explains something about when the missiles fall and how, you know, society used to be run or whatever. Where she is, what it means, what the difference from Vault 33 and 32, and, you know, how something works in this world. You know, I had one comment that, like, he liked the show, and he's a sci-fi fan, and he likes figuring this out. Well, so far the show nails the look, but it doesn't nail totally the tone. Because when I was playing Fallout and I was the Vault Dweller coming up, I didn't have these problems. Like, my first problem is, you know, you have to kill some rad roaches and then find a gun that isn't a stupid gun. Or at least pick up a baseball bat so you can smash things with. You can't take on every raider at first because you don't have any armor. Eventually you start putting armor over your vault uniform. And then later you just switch to full-blown leather armor, and then eventually to power armor. But, you know, maybe Lucy could have done that this episode. Could have started saying, I got to put on some armor. Like, maybe she could have gotten attacked by some raiders, just some random dudes, and she has to trank them, and she gets hurt, and she has to heal herself, and maybe in the beginning she's got a million stim packs, but she starts burning through them, right? I mean, that would make the show move forward. She could realize, hey, these people are crazy. Instead, we have this long scene with the pawn shop woman. It's not particularly engaging, other than, like, she's crazy. Well, not really crazy. She's kind of a jerk. She's resentful of the vault people. And we get this weird scene where she says, oh, you know, a bunch of rich people hid in the vaults. I guess, but is that really a factor hundreds of years? It's 219 years later. It's not even a factor. You didn't have an educational system to even remember that crap. Okay? The only thing you know about the vault dwellers is, oh yeah, you're the vault dwellers. You're a bunch of naive asshats. And we take advantage of you every day. So you either sympathize with them or you don't. I don't think you remember 219 years ago when they were rich. I don't think the Raiders have been passing that down to their kin year after year. If anything, you would have some terrible information like, well, they're just easy prey. Just, you know, take advantage of them. The scientist, he's a non-entity in it. He feels like a game character. He feels like someone who drifts in and out of the story. What was the point of him? And what was the point of his sacrifice? Doesn't make any sense. Seemed like Jim's limbs was working for him. He could walk. He was still bleeding, but again, you have these stim packs. Why not use them? Like, if you're not going to play at the height of your intelligence, it just doesn't work. I know the game. You could have made an excuse why you can't use a stim pack. No, I can't use a stim pack because of that thing in his neck, maybe. That could be a reason. He can't use them. Now, maybe that would bite you in the A later, but that'd be a reason. It could be that because he put on Jim's limbs, it's not gonna work, or it might heal over the nerve endings or something. Like, he could have said some scientific reason. No. If you give me a stim pack, it will heal over my nerve endings, and then the foot won't work. But if he planned to kill himself anyway, I mean, that could be the other thing. He could just say, "Oh no, you don't have to give me that. I'm killing myself." Like, I just don't get why he killed himself. Doesn't make any sense to me, unless, I don't know, he's got some grand design later to come back to life using the thing he injected into his neck. The only smart guy in the whole show is Walton Goggins' character, because although he stabs the dog, he heals the dog in order to find the scientist. Because when he sees all the blood, he goes back to the dog. The dog was the guy's companion. He heals the dog. Now, the dog doesn't attack Walter Goggins again, which seems like the dog would have a reaction. I mean, the dog has memories. I'm pretty sure the dog wouldn't want to be around Walton Goggins, but he could still follow it. These little details is what really cheeses me off on a show like this. Because again, they spent millions and millions and millions of dollars. And yes, the sets look nice. The actors aren't too bad. The makeup's nice. I mean, she looks great. I know what she's from. She's from that movie that Jennifer Lawrence was in. She's good at these roles. She's perfect for these roles. That's good casting. The casting's great. The actors are great. But, this whole scene right here in the pawn shop, it's kind of a big waste of time. She shows the picture to the guy with the iguana selling radioactive iguana. She should have immediately come in and showed the picture to her of her dad. I'm looking for this man. I can't help you. Is there some reason she can't see the picture, so there's a surprise later? I don't know. But she should have showed her the picture. If she did it to the first guy she met, she'd do it for the next person. Why wouldn't she? I mean, maybe she thought, well, I didn't get a good reaction. Maybe she could lose the picture. I don't know, but seems to be like she would have showed her the picture, gotten her answer, and gotten out of there. Because she doesn't know this pawn shop from any other thing in this world, she might as well ask as many people as she can. That would be my strategy if I'm looking for somebody. Ask as many people as I can. And figure out, I don't know, something that this woman wants. And then eventually the pawn shop woman's forced to get the vault dweller to escort the scientist to her client, which turns out to be the raider. And then she convinces her, well, if you escort the scientist to the raider, you have something to bargain with. But she's a vault dweller. And you spent 10 minutes berating her about how naive she is. How good of a negotiator is she going to be? She's going to be terrible at it. She's going to be absolutely terrible at negotiating with a raider. So it doesn't make any sense. It also doesn't make sense that they put that much faith in her when they keep saying, and the scientist did this too. The scientist kept saying, go home, Vault Dweller, go home. Why would you put faith in her? You might as well have surrendered to Walton Goggins. Doesn't make any sense. So, it could have been a situation. Again, you could have just rewritten this that they just escape together. They put Jim's limbs on the scientist, and then the ghoul is, still shooting up the place, and they all escape. And her and the scientist go one way, the pawn shop woman and her husband go another way. The pawn shop woman lives to fight another day, or maybe they hide from Walter Goggins, who then heals the dog and goes after the scientist and what's her face? I forget her name. There's other ways you could write this that make sense. It feels like this show is just trying to get its legs, and that's the problem. You spend millions of dollars on the show. You can't spend 2 episodes writing it until, okay, now I get it. Now I think the show has legs. No. If you have to spend 2 episodes doing that until the show gets on plane, what you do is you delete those 2 scripts. Start on the 3rd episode or the 4th episode or whenever the show gets up on plane. Tell the rest of the information you need in flashback. In fact, one of the tricks in comics, and this goes true with episodic television, is you start in the middle of something. Start with her already out of the vault. But we can learn I'm a vault dweller and I'm very naive, and you'd learn that through her actions. And then later in flashback, you could find out, well, how did you get here, kid? And then you could do the whole wedding fiasco. I think it would be more effective. So, am I going to watch more of this? I don't know. But it's about the same. It's about the same. I know. You like it because it looks good and it's not total woke trash. Yeah, I'll admit it's not total girl boss. But you'll notice that only 2 effective players in this are the Vault Dweller and the Pawn Shop Lady. They're the focus. Walter Goggins is too busy fighting, and Maximus is still kind of learning the ropes. He's effing up. The scientist, I don't even know why he's in the episode, quite frankly. Like, if you needed a MacGuffin, just pick a little ball of something. The scientist character wasn't interesting. He just was a non-entity. You could have just made it literally an inanimate carbon rod, and it would have been about as interesting. Yeah, we tied this inanimate carbon rod to one of the cybernetic dogs. If we could find that rod. So, that's Fallout 2, or Episode 2, I'll say. It got slightly better. Slightly. Maybe it's the sort of thing that it's the only game in town, right? There's no Mad Max, no really good Mad Max. Everybody likes Fallout. It's a good world, Oh, and there's a scene, too. What little dialogue there is. One of the scenes is Vault Dweller girl telling the pawn shop lady, oh, but, we have to rebuild America. And she's just like, America? Like, again, seems like you're editorializing in the show. Like, I feel like it's not blatant this time, but it's simmering in the background. So we already had one episode in which marriage is completely destroyed, and now symbolically, and now we have another episode where we have this line of dialogue that's like, America, oh, that stupid thing. Yeah. It seems like the same old, only slightly more subtle. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check me out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for a more base takes. If you can find a more base take, I say, take it. I will be at Juniper Village on Thursday at 3 p.m. for my talk on how to hunt the Jersey Devil. It's mainly for residents and their families. If you want to go, I think you probably have to get permission from the village. Saturday, I will be at the Farm Mall in Medford, New Jersey, or Giant Farm Mall, I think they're calling it, on Saturday, 8 a.m. to like 2. If it rains, it'll be on Sunday. Hope they see you there. We'll see you